for your consideration, and this was also one of the discussion points at the IFPAC conference in January. And some points we might discuss. Pharmaculture evolved to specialize in compliance and performance. That is a good division, and it works well. In fact, it prevents the short-circuiting of moral choices that seems to be wired into us. The most efficient approach is to build upon the balance of quality compliance and quality performance, recognizing it is a dynamic, self-correcting system for senior management. Oh, this is interesting. It has to do with that integrative judgment, right? So if quality is working, if quality control, quality assurance is working as the moral basis of to do no harm, and manufacturing is working from the moral basis to do the greatest good for the greatest number, then there are actually two different sides with which senior management might exercise judgment. The value of that is you avoid the most common pitfall in management of only hearing one side. You have two different perspectives with which to make a decision. And lastly, metrics of performance should be treated as a self-audit, safe from direct scrutiny pending proof of a working system. So if an auditor were to come into your organization and say, give me all of your process capability indices, be ready to respond to that. Do you have a system of self-audit in place? What does it look like? How does it work? Who's responsible for it? Do you have proof of that system, like statistical process control reports, right? Process improvement reports, continuous improvement reports, that SPC project, manufacturing management project. Are you doing proactive CAPA? Can you show them procedures? All of which would support your claim of a system for continual improvement. All right, and that is the end of my talk. Oh, thank you very much. Louis, do we have time? Is it okay to have a little discussion?
Questions and
okay.
Discussion?
Yes, Dave.
I don't know where it is, but it seems like one of the ICH guidance defines risk as a combination of probability, which I think of as your percent OS.
Mm-hmm.
And
exactly right.
And then I don't know the other word, it's like consequences.
Severity.
Severity.
Yeah, so it's ICHQ9. And in that, risk is equal to the severity of a potential hazard times the probability of that hazard. And you could also throw in detectability as a third dimension. May I make a little editorial on that?
Yeah, I was wondering what your thoughts were on the severity.
That's a good question. So that has to do with the clinical or toxicological relevance of our specifications. What we're trying to do is bound risk to the patient of potential hazards. That may be the call of a medical opinion. Yeah? Because unlike the potato chip manufacturers, we can't do a study of how many burnt potato chips are okay to have in a bag, right? We can't do a study of how many critical defects could potentially kill our patients. Yeah? And we're in a slightly different position from traditional manufacturing. And so medical opinion, our tox data, our clinical trial data, we haven't done a very good job of linking our specifications back to those and making our arguments back to those. And we invest a tremendous amount of money into that. We can do a little better job when it comes to the severity. And if I could pick up the other thought that you introduced, that probability in the ICHQ9 definition of risk, probability is directly related to the percent OOS. It is directly related to our process capability, and however you want to talk about that, if you want to use CPK, PPK, percent OOS, probability of a defect, any of those, They're all saying the same thing. And it's a very good way to justify the prioritization of your resources in your organization. And we have that data. Can I make one more editorial? All right, so one more point. The other thing that I'm seeing in the industry is a temptation to add more dimensions to that risk ranking, right? So instead of just severity times probability, or if you'd like, severity times probability times detectability, I'm also finding like location, economic impact, and all these other dimensions that people are adding in an effort to get more gradation in their assessment. The problem is that each one of those dimensions requires a certain amount of care and feeding. And if you're going to be annually reviewing and periodically revising, you are adding exponentially more work with every dimension. The bare minimum required by ICHQ 9 is that risk is equal to severity times probability. That is sufficient. Yes, sir.
Could you put up that one slide with the person on the bridge again?
Well, all I've got's a trolley.
What's that?
The one with the brain or the one with the...
person on the bridge. You got the trolley coming by, there's a person standing on a bridge.
This
Remember
one right
that
there,
slide?
right there.
There we go.
Okay.
Stop. Person standing on the bridge. I don't like your analogy as too much of a generalization. Why do I say that?
Why do you say that?
Many decisions are made militarily where the guy standing on the bridge is indeed thrown in front of the trolley to protect the other 5 people. And I can give you a number of examples now or later if you like.
Oh, no need.
And,
I agree with you, and this is a perfectly good moral position to take.
Right. And I have worked for a number of immoral managers who just might make that same decision and not make the decision that 95% of the population would make, and who are really making moral decisions.
So with that caveat, 5% are going to make the other one.
There's also
Right, you have 5% of the managers. Not necessarily, but if you took the managers as if you took military commanders with military experience, that percentage will change, in my opinion, would change pretty significantly.
Well, there's also the small percentage that will throw themselves on a grenade. Meaning,
Yeah.
They would throw themselves
Which are
down.
probably the most altruistic, or that bad reflex, one or the other.
Yes, Dan.
So there's a bit of a shift in the pharmaceutical industry towards targeted medicines, orphan products, and a lot of these shorter run rate types of manufacturing operations. What sort of guidance would you give to manufacturers as far as managing those short run rates of data as they try to get into a continuous improvement model, knowing that they're going to be sort of handicapped by that?
Well, there is short-run statistical process control with which manufacturing could manage short runs.
Okay.
So it's this whole other field of discipline. And beyond that, I'd be happy to teach a class. I'm going to let this gentleman and then you, Mike.
You mentioned a minute ago in looking at risk factors that we wouldn't add any type of financial data. I don't see how we cannot use financial data in making a decision. For example, if we have $1 billion blockbuster versus a $10 million drug product annual sales, and you have limited resources, you're going to put a lot more effort to protect the $1 billion franchise than the $10 million product. And therefore, I submit to you that the finances do play a part in that decision making.
And I do not disagree. My point is that for your risk to the patient, the finances are irrelevant. However, for the benefit of the company, or for perhaps the existence of the company, they're fundamentally important. They belong in a separate ranking or a separate assessment. The risk to the patient, the risk assessment that we're considering is risk to the patient, and that's what the regulators are interested in. If you put them all into one document, I have seen it lead to much confusion. Does that sufficiently address? Okay. Good point. Mike.
Great presentation, thank you. If you look at your OOS rate, are there any industry averages in the industry? 1 out of every 200 tests is OOS as an average for industry that you can compare yourself to?
Well, that is a very interesting question. And it is one of the things that FDA is attempting to get at in their optional metrics. So if you read through the FDA's draft guidance on metrics, they actually have some optional metrics on process capability indices specifically. Now, I don't know why they did that. I know if it were optional, I wouldn't answer it. But I suspect what they're trying to do in that making it optional is to give everyone a, they're showing their cards. We're going to be asking you about your percent OOS. What is the threshold that you are using? Who is reviewing it? Yeah? So that's what the draft guidance is about. A more concrete answer to your question about what those thresholds are in the industry could be found in our acceptance sampling programs. Our acceptance sampling programs are built around 2 different levels of percent OOS, or the percent defects. Yeah? And so your critical, major, minor AQLs and long-term percent defectives are exactly those thresholds. Beyond that, I don't want to get too technical because I fear that it will be more complicated than the discussion time will allow. But if you'd like to chat later, I'd be happy to. Right? And that's why I say the percent OOS is a much more useful metric with which to discuss compliance, because 1, it's a compliance issue, right? Those are the specifications we've committed to. And also, it's already built into how we operate as an industry. It's built into our acceptance sampling programs. It's built into how we release lots. It's built into how we recall things. Okay. Yes, sir. Was it you? Oh, you. Sorry.
I wasn't.
Ed, you have the floor.
Okay, thanks. You haven't mentioned quality by design, which is more of an integrative approach to looking at the CQAs and how they impact one another and how to prioritize based on that importance. And you know, that's perhaps a different perspective on what you were presenting at the end, where you were identifying the individual parameters. But how do you because quality by design is part of ICH, and even though the FDA isn't requiring it, there's a number of companies that have used it.
This is interesting. So Ed, I was just at a conference where Kim, she was the acting director of the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, and she said something very interesting on that point. She said that there is no quality by design application. There is no special group of applications that are quality by design. They are all quality by design. The C in the CGMP just raised the bar. Yeah? So with that, there are elements of quality by design in this presentation. The other thing that Kim said that I thought was quite insightful was that quality by design does not mean just DOE. They also want to see the risk assessments.
Right.
And they want to see that the risk assessments are living documents.
Right.
Yeah? And that they're being actively used for the prioritization of resources by risk to the patient and economic concerns like that. She also said something that I thought was quite insightful around the use of risk assessment in the management of post-approval change. So when you are proposing a complex post-approval change, you can go back to your risk assessment prior to your control strategy, right? Just the raw severity times the probability, and give them a picture of how your proposed change may impact that assessment. Oh, that was very clever of her. So with that, the elements that link to quality by design in here have to do with, well, what Lynn Torbeck has always said, how you present the data affects how you think about the data. And our systems ought to take into account that there is both a performance and a compliance perspective. Does that answer your question sufficiently? Okay. Any other questions or thoughts? Well, I had, oh, Dave.
Well, in our, one other thing in our industry that seems to be true, at least in product development, is that we learn over time. So we don't, like, we have 3 lots that we use to decide whether or not the product should be approved. But yet, we may make many more lots, but yet do we adjust our thinking? And so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that answer.
So, has anyone been in charge of a legacy product? Raise your hand. Anyone been in charge of a legacy product? Yeah, I got a few. So when I first entered pharmaceuticals, I was a process engineer on the floor, and it was amazing. Everywhere around, everyone was operating as if we were in kind of a house of cards that nobody quite understood, but they knew that it had to be like those first 3 lots. And that no matter what, you couldn't change anything. But as a process engineer, I'm looking around and holy cow, everything's changing all the time everywhere, right? And that is part of the reason of this like crisis mode that we're in pharmaceutical manufacturing, because it's unrealistic. The 3 runs and done approach to manufacturing is over. And it's a bad approach. It's just not real. But what Dave has just introduced is a much more sophisticated approach to manufacturing. We may need those 3 runs to go from stage 2 to stage 3. And if I remember right, you and Linus wrote a paper about the use of Bayesian statistics where 3 runs actually has a statistical basis.
I don't know if it was me, but there are thoughts on that.
Well, then I've got a great paper out of it. And there is some statistical justification for why 3 is a reasonable number beyond just the, once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, 3 times a pattern, right? There's actually some statistical basis to that. And rather than go into Bayesian statistics, if I might just appeal to tolerance intervals, the idea is that with a certain amount of data, you can have a certain statement of confidence and coverage. You can say that with 30 lots, you have a certain confidence and coverage. If you were to take 30 data points from each of 3 lots, you would have a pool of 90 data points with which you could get to like a 94% confidence and 95% of your population is within specs. And this is why what we've been doing works. But within that is also the realization that, as Dave points out, as you gather more data, you can make a better statement of confidence and coverage. This, however, is in the order of a couple of 100 lots. Well, now perhaps you can make a 95% confidence statement about 99% of your population. 700 lots, you can make 99% confidence in 99, right? And as we gain more information, we know more about what we've done. We should use that. And that is what stage 3, process validation, could be about. We're in a lucky position in that at this point in time, we get to set the course for the industry as to how we're going to use this. Any other thoughts or questions? Well, this has been an excellent discussion. Thank you. How about in the back? No? All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I've really enjoyed our talk.